The day my son told me I was not welcome at his wedding, something inside me cracked, but it wasn't the kind of break that leaves someone fragile. It was the kind that exposes everything, every wound, every truth, every hidden injustice, and forces it into the light. People think heartbreak comes suddenly, like a storm crashing in without warning. But mine began long before his wedding. It began the day I realized that my son, who I had raised with every ounce of strength and dignity I had as a black woman married into a white family, had learned to see me through someone else's eyes, eyes that did not understand me, respect me, or accept me. So when he said the words, when he told me not to come, it didn't just hurt. It revealed exactly how far he had drifted from the truth of who I was and the sacrifices I had made for him. I raised my son mostly alone. His father was present in body but rarely in spirit, the kind of man who believed providing money was the same as providing love. Their side of the family never cared to know me. I was tolerated at holidays, ignored at gatherings, and criticized in quiet corners whenever I spoke up or didn't speak up, whenever I dressed too plainly or too boldly. Everything about me seemed to offend them. They never said anything directly, but racism doesn't always enter through loud slurs or raised voices. Sometimes it seeps in through smiles that don't reach the eyes, invitations that never arrive, whispered judgments passed to the next generation like heirlooms. And over the years, I watched my son absorb those little messages like dust settling onto a surface. Slowly, quietly, enough to dull the shine of our bond. When he met Emily, I hoped things would get better. She was kind at first, polite in the way people are when they're unsure how to navigate difference. But as the wedding planning began, I noticed the shift. Decisions were made without me. Conversations happened around me. I became a guest in a life I helped build. They picked a venue that seated 300 but said cutting the list was hard, so maybe it's best if I not attend, just to keep things smooth. Smooth for who? They never answered that, but I already knew. When my son delivered the final blow, saying my presence might make some people uncomfortable, I felt the weight of centuries in that single sentence. Because uncomfortable had always meant people like me were expected to shrink. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I simply nodded, and he genuinely believed that was acceptance. What he didn't know was that grief, when mixed with years of swallowed injustice, becomes something far more powerful. Not revenge, not spite, clarity. And with clarity comes truth. The truth I had kept quiet for far too long. The wedding day arrived crisp and bright. I stayed home, sitting in the quiet of my living room, the same room where I had held him as a newborn, where he had taken his first steps, where I had spent countless nights nursing fevers and soothing nightmares. It was a day meant to be filled with celebration for him, but for me it was a day of remembering every moment that led us here. And as I sat there, something inside me rose, a calm certainty that silence was no longer my duty. A week after the wedding, the newlyweds held a family dinner. Everyone from his father's side attended, laughing, glowing with after-wedding excitement. I arrived by invitation, not from my son, but from Emily's mother, who believed it was important for unity. I stood in that dining room, surrounded by people who had spent years shrinking me, dismissing me, pretending tolerance was kindness. And instead of anger, I felt something steadier, resolve. I spoke about raising my son alone, about the sacrifices they never saw, the dreams I set aside, so he could build his own. I told them about the painful moments I endured in silence, the comments I pretended not to hear, the disrespect I absorbed so that my son might grow up feeling loved by both families. And finally, I told them the truth they had always avoided. Racism doesn't need fangs. Sometimes it simply hides behind politeness. I told them that excluding me from the wedding wasn't about seating charts or comfort. It was about what they were unwilling to confront within themselves. The room went still. No one had expected me to speak. Not like that. Not with decades of grace and hurt braided into every word. My son stared at me, and for the first time in years, I saw him truly see me. Not the version shaped by his father's family. Not the softened caricature they preferred, but me, the mother who built him, protected him, guided him, and loved him enough to tell the truth even when it shattered the room.
He didn't speak.
Not then. But later, he came to my home. He sat where he once sat as a child, hands fidgeting the same way they had when he was nervous. And he apologized. Not in the simple way people apologize to end discomfort, but in the raw, trembling way someone apologizes when they finally understand the full weight of what they've done. He said he couldn't undo, excluding me. He said Emily cried when she learned the real reason. He said he finally realized how deeply the quiet racism of his family had shaped him. I didn't tell him everything was fine. I didn't offer absolution he hadn't yet earned. But I told him this. Understanding is the first step toward healing. And healing takes time, real time. In the months that followed, he worked to rebuild our relationship, not with grand gestures, but with presence, accountability, and conversations that should have happened years earlier. And each step brought us closer to something honest and unfiltered. Some people say what I told them that day changed the entire family. Some say it changed my son forever. But for me, it was never about changing them.
It was about freeing myself.
Because sometimes the most powerful thing a mother can do is not protect her child from truth, but show him how to face it. And for anyone listening to this story, I have one question. How many families would change if just one person finally spoke the truth no one wanted to hear?